Okay, so this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and now that I have a Cobra, I want to go ahead and go into detail regarding specifically what they mean about having a detector that detects 15 bands. This is the kind of stuff that we look at and we're like, what in the world are they talking about? There's only 4 bands that you can have. There's X band, there's K band, there's Ka band, and there's Ku band. That's it. There are no other bands of radar. But you'll see in their marketing stuff, they'll say we can detect 14 bands, and ooh, now our detectors can detect 15 bands. And we're sitting here like, what the heck are they talking about? This is ridiculous. So now that I've got a Cobra, you can see here, this is the 7800 BT, the SPX 7800 BT, and you'll see right there in red, it says it detects 15 bands. Hopefully that shows up there. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take straight out of the manual, the specs, I'm going to post it up on the screen so you can see what the different quote-unquote bands that they detect are. And you can see for this particular detector, it says it detects 7 different types of radar signals, 6 different types of laser signals, and 2 different types of safety signals for a total of 15 quote-unquote bands. All right, so basically what they're trying to say, they're completely misusing the term bands. And if you haven't watched my video on what X band, K band, and Ka band mean, I'm going to go ahead and post a link to it. You'll see it here on the screen. Click on it or click in the video description. You'll get more information about, I'm going to go into detail about what bands mean and show you the different antennas for the different bands. But basically the short version is when radar was kind of being developed, there were a whole bunch of radar nerds that got around, probably people a lot like me, who said, hey, there's a whole bunch of different frequencies that we can use, and we need an easier way to talk about it. So they said from this range to this range is going to be one band. This range to this range is going to be another band, and I'll put those on the screen as well. And you can see, depending on the frequencies that are used, those are called different bands. And so it's just a convenient way of discussing different frequency ranges. And so bands have specifically to do with radar, and that's why we have an X band, we have a K band, we have Ka band, and there's also Ku band. Here in the States, there's only X, K, and Ka in use. Ka is in use. Ku is in use in Europe. It's permitted here in the States, but there's no manufacturers that are or will be producing Ku band radar. So this detector can detect 4 different bands of radar. And we'll go ahead and take a look.
Alert.
So you can see we've got X band, K band, Ka band, and Ku. And then a couple other things you can detect like pop, VG2, which I'll get into this here in just a bit. The spectra, or spectri, or spectre, or however you say it. I'm going to say spectra. I might be mispronouncing it, whatever. That's how I've always said it, don't care. I'm going to say spectra. And then the safety alert system and low voltage. So, okay, so you can see we can configure some stuff here in the detector. Let's go ahead and start working through the list. The first 4 on this list, totally cool with. They're actually bands. They are legitimately different radar bands that you can detect. Let's talk about the next 3 now. The VG2, the Spectra 1, and the Spectra 4. These are 3 different types of radar detector detectors. Detectors like this will actually emit radar energy that can be picked up by other people with, well, nicer radar detectors. These ones will actually, unfortunately, cause false alerts because they just spew so much crap into the air. They can be picked up by other radar detectors, which is why they have to have filters to deal with guys like this. And additionally, radar detector detectors can pick up the signals coming out of these, and in areas where radar detectors are illegal, such as Washington, D.C. or Virginia, radar detectors are forbidden, and so radar detector detectors are in use. Now, there's a couple different ones. One of the oldest ones that came out, the original one was the VG2. This came out like 20 years ago or something. I don't know, 30, 10, 20, let's just say 20 years ago. I don't remember the exact date. But basically at this point, it's ancient, it's outdated, and it's really easy to make it so that the VG2 can't pick it up. I drove around with one. I could still pick up detectors being in use today, and this was like a couple months ago. I'll post some links if you're curious. You can click on those and see the VG2 in use. But anyways, almost every detector these days can be engineered in such a way where it's immune to detection from the VG2. No big deal, whatever. That thing is ancient and out of date. Now, the primary one that's in use, if you were to go buy one today, would be the Spectra. There are a bunch of different versions of it. There's the Spectra 1, the Spectra 2, the Spectra 3, the Spectra 4, and the current version, which is the Spectra Elite. They all have different features. Obviously, they get better. The original one that came out was the Spectra 1. Once they found out, hey, we can be detected by the Spectra, they actually re-engineered their detectors to make it immune. So the Spectra 1 was already out of date. So this one can detect the Spectra 1, but it cannot detect the Spectra 2, the Spectra 3, or the current one in use, which is the Spectra Elite. And I know this is kind of one of those things where most people don't necessarily know this. They just think, wow, look at all this stuff that it can detect. It must be great. Let's just go down and, what do they actually mean? Like, what's important here? And what are they maybe not telling me that would be really helpful to know? We're going to go through that, as you can see. So the Spectra 2, the Spectra 3, seen tests online. Basically, seen some tests against this detector and the Spectra 3, and they found that the Spectra can detect, this is the Spectra 3, can detect this radar detector from a couple hundred feet away. This is the Spectra 4, I forget which one it does. But the Cobra could not detect the Spectra. One of the versions that it could detect, it detected it like 15 feet away or something ridiculous. So the Spectra was picking this thing up hundreds of feet away. The Cobra would pick up the Spectra about 15 feet away. So yes, it can technically detect the Spectra, but not in any useful fashion. The idea is when it detects it, it'll automatically shut itself down and stop functioning so that your detector cannot be picked up by a radar detector, but in the real world, it's going to be pretty much too late. It's not going to be turning itself off until you're pretty much passing the police officer or until he pulls up right behind you to pull you over. So useful feature, not really in practice. As you can see, there's a bunch of versions of the Spectra that it doesn't detect, and even the ones that it does is very poor implementation, so it's not really going to be beneficial. In those areas, you may want to actually get a detector that is immune to Spectra detection entirely, which would be the M3 line of detectors from Escort and Beltronics. So if you're seriously looking for radar detector immunity, look into the Escort Redline, Beltronics Magnum, Beltronics STIR+, the Escort 9500 CI. They all use the M3 style antenna, and those actually are immune to detection from the Spectras and the BG2. Only ones that can do that. And also the Stinger VIP, that one looks like it can as well from what I've seen. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about laser. But, oh yeah, these radar detectors, they're not bands. They're things that a radar detector can detect, but they're not additional bands. So calling them a band is completely inaccurate, which is why you'll see that no other detector, no other manufacturer will tell you how many bands it can detect, is because they're not extra bands. They'll just say, nobody else claims 14 bands or 15 bands. Like, those claims are actually Cobra trademarks because they're made up by Cobra and they're completely made up. They have nothing to do with detecting bands. They're just XK, KA, and KU. Anyways, let's go ahead and go on to the different types of laser signals that it can detect. You can see here that they claim to detect 6 different types of laser signals that they are incorrectly calling bands. They've got... And this is one of the parts that I had to sit down and figure out what the heck are they talking about. You've got the LTI 2020, the LTI laser, the Custom Signals Laser 340, the Custom Signals Laser, the Stalker LiDAR, and the Laser Atlanta Speed Laser / Custom Signals Pro Laser 2. That to me looks like it was written by somebody who doesn't actually understand anything about LiDAR. It took me a while to kind of decode what the heck they're talking about, and now I think I understand, so let's go ahead and talk about it. The first two, you've got the LTI 2020 and the LTI laser. LTI makes a series of guns, and they have for a while. You've got their old 2020 series of guns. Their guns primarily transmit at 125 pulses per second. All LiDAR guns transmit at about 904, 905 nanometers is the wavelength of the infrared laser light that they transmit. But they transmit at different pulses, on and off, different frequencies in that sense. Typically the LTI guns are at 125 pulses per second. They did have one or two that transmitted 100 pulses per second. And they have some newer guns like the TrueSpeed S, which transmit at 4,000 pulses per second. I don't know necessarily, based on this, which ones they're claiming to detect. My guess, based on looking at this, they can detect the 125s, which are the most common LTI pulse rates, and the LTI 2020, maybe it can also do like one of the 100 pulse per second guns. Maybe it can detect the newer ones, 4,000 pulses per second, that some detectors are having trouble with. I don't know, don't have a TrueSpeed S here or one of those in that series to actually verify that, so I can't tell you for sure if it can or not. I'd be pretty impressed if it could, but it wouldn't be too big of a deal. Next, okay, let's take a look. We've got the Custom Signals Laser 340. That gun does not exist. There's no such thing as a 340 by Custom. Custom makes a series of guns. You've got the Custom Pro Laser 1, the Pro Laser 2, the Pro Laser 3, the Pro Laser 4, and the Pro Light Plus. The Pro Laser series look like pistols, basically. You know, hold them up, they look like handguns. The Pro Light Plus looks like a set of binoculars. And I'll go ahead and put pictures of those up on the screen so you can see what they look like. Now, they're broken up into 3 different sections, and I had to figure out what the heck they're talking about. And here's my best guess as to what it means. The Custom Signals Laser, my guess is they're referring to the Custom Pro Laser 1, the original one from way back in the day. It transmitted at 381 pulses per second. That gun has long since been replaced. They later came out with the Pro Laser 2, which you'll see it here in number 6. The Pro Laser 2 transmits at 238 pulses per second, just like the Laser Atlanta guns, which is my guess as to why they've grouped them up into one. They're 2 different brands, 2 different manufacturers, but they put them into one group like that. Based on that, that's telling me that because these are both transmitting at 238 pulses per second, and that's kind of one unique laser signal out of the 6 that it's seeing, that tells me that they're saying that this can detect 6 different individual pulse rates. They seem to be pretty particular about what they can detect, and given that they use it as such a big marketing pitch, I'm pretty sure that if they could detect more than what they are listing here, they would list it because it's a big selling point for them, right? We used to be able to detect 14 bands, and now we can do 15. Which one should I get? The 15 must be better. I'll get the one that can detect 15, right? Even if it's totally a useless number and means nothing, it's still fine for marketing. So my guess is if they could detect more than this, they would list it, specify it, and they would market it and promote the hell out of it. So that's my guess. But anyways, coming back to this, the Pro Laser 2 can detect 238 pulses per second. Now that leaves us with the Pro Laser 3 and the Pro Laser 4, which my guess is what they're talking about there in number 3, the Custom Signals Laser 340. Like I said, there's no such thing as a Custom 340. There is, however, a Pro Laser 3 and a Pro Laser 4, and I'm guessing what they're referring to is the 200 pulses per second pulse rate coming out of the PL3 and the PL4. Now the binocular style one that I was talking about, the Custom Pro Light Plus, also transmits at 200 pulses per second. And so my guess now is that's going to be the 0, perhaps? Pro Laser 3, Pro Laser 4, and the 0 is the Pro Light Plus. This is just like my best guess, trying to decode what the heck they're talking about here. And then finally for number 5, we've got the Stalker LiDAR. That's an older gun. The older LZ1s, they transmitted at 130 pulses per second. They have since been discontinued and they've been replaced by some of the newer guns like the Stalker XLR. Some of the newer guns, you've got the Stalker XLR, you've got the Laser Ally, you've got the Dragon Eye Compact. There are newer LiDAR guns on the market that are designed specifically to defeat laser jammers. This is not a laser jammer, this is simply a laser detector. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with it, having laser detection in a radar detector is of limited value. Oftentimes, because the laser is so small, like you guys have seen laser pointers, they're like this thin beam, right? Laser guns do spread out a little bit more than that, but they tend to be very tightly focused on the target, which is going to be either your headlights or your front plate or your grille, center mass. And so they're generally aiming for somewhere at the grille of the vehicle, and because the beam is so thin, very often your radar detector up on your windshield is not going to be alerted because it doesn't see that beam, particularly at closer distances before that beam has a chance to spread out. And so what that means is very often you can be shot with laser and your radar detector will never go off. Even if it did, however, it's a very limited value because even if it does go off, all it's telling you is, hey, you just got shot with laser and your ticket has been clocked. It's too late to slow down. It's essentially a ticket notifier, which is one of the reasons why you'll want to look into laser jammers and not rely on a radar detector no matter how good it is. But coming back to what we've been saying here about the Stalker, 130 pulses per second. The newer VPR guns, the variable pulse rate, they're not a fixed pulse rate. Even the Laser Atlanta has a special stealth mode which transmits at 68 pulses per second. It's an available option on the guns you can enable. They don't actually list it here, so I don't know if it can detect it, and I sold my Laser Atlanta a while ago, so I can't test this. But that's basically what they're referring to here with the various laser guns. Now, I want to go ahead and demonstrate this. The way I'm going to do that is I have a little laser tester. It's basically a simulator. It's not a LiDAR gun, but it can transmit the same pulse rates as a LiDAR gun in order to simulate the presence of one. We've got a number of different guns here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the different buttons, and you're going to actually see the pulse rate displayed here on the Cobra, which the laser nerd in me is like, that's cool. I love seeing the pulse rates of the guns. I think that's really spiffy. There's a lot of detectors like the V1 can't do that, the Redline can't do that, the Max can't do that. I mean, hey, you know, Cobra's got something on the other detectors, so it's not all bad, whatever. But anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at, you can see here, the first one we're going to shoot is going to be the True Speed. So this would be one of the LTI guns. True Speed by LTI.
Laser alert.
Okay. Cool. And so that one is 200 pulses per second. Unlike the LRB, remember how we were saying the other LTI, the ultralight guns? Those are actually going to be the, was it 125 pulses per second? So let's go ahead and shoot that. So there you go, you'll see 125. Okay, next up we've got on this remote, there's the PL2/Laser Atlanta. So we'll go ahead and trigger that one and you'll see the pulse rate displayed. 238. That's cool. We got different sounds there too, that's kind of spiffy. And then next we're going to go ahead and do the PL3, the PL4, and the Pro Light Plus, as I mentioned. That's going to be this one, and these all transmit at 200 pulses per second as well. That's not right. Did I pressed the wrong button? I'm sorry. It's this button here. There we go. And I think the true speeds are actually like 200.3. Let's see if it'll detect that. It doesn't, no. Okay. And then finally we've got, remember the stalker we were talking about? It said it detects the stalker LiDAR. That's going to be this button right here. So we'll press that, and that one is 130 pulses per second. Cool. Yay, so you can see that there. And as you can see, it does detect the guns listed here. These are all older guns. They've been around for a long time. There's still a ton of these in use, especially a lot of the LTI guns and the custom guns. The Stalker ones as well, Laser Atlanta too, depending on where you are. A lot of these guns are still in use. There are now newer guns that are coming out that based on strictly this, I don't have these guns with me at the moment to actually test and verify, so I can't say one way or another. But based on this list, it doesn't specifically specify these other guns, and so my guess, based on this, is that it can't detect some of the newer guns. However, it's not that big of a deal, given that even if it could, so what? You're still going to want a set of laser jammers, even if it could detect these guns. So, cool. Basically, it's saying it detects a couple different pulse rates for different guns. Yay! There you go, there's a short version. And then finally, the last two are the safety systems. You've got the safety alert systems and the strobe alert systems. Basically what these are, the safety alert system is Cobra's name for the, if you've heard with other detectors, they refer to it as SWS, the safety warning system. Cobra calls it the safety alert system, whatever. The idea is you have, emergency vehicles have K-band transmitters on them, where they will say, hey, I am an ambulance coming, I am a police car coming, there's construction vehicle here, pay attention, there's construction workers. And so they'll have these transmitters either on construction sites or on emergency vehicles to notify other people with radar detectors. It was a cool idea, never took off. And so it was kind of one of those things where radar detector people can say, hey, we've got this feature, check this box. We've got more features than our competition. That was kind of a lot of what it turned into. But the feature really isn't in use. So a lot of people, they just have the feature turned off. It'll just look like K-band if you have the feature turned off. There's a lot of detectors that have it, but usually everybody recommends just turn it off. Some detectors don't even bother including it, so it's not a big deal. I know they include it and they like to say, ooh, it's one more thing we can detect. Realistically, not a big deal. And then finally, there's a strobe alert system. What this is for is some emergency vehicles have an infrared transmitter, IR light, that they can flash at traffic lights. And they can actually make traffic lights, go all red and let them pass. It's a way for them to manually override the traffic light so that emergency vehicles can pass through safely. They will also do this. I was actually driving today up the highway, and I started getting this weird alert, and I'm looking at my detector, and it's saying emergency vehicle. And I was like, what is this? And I'm looking around. It actually alerted before I could see it. And it was on the other side of the highway, over the median. And it was an ambulance heading towards me with, lights and sirens ablaze. And it was coming. And sure enough, my Cobra detector alerted, which actually I thought was kind of cool. I'll go ahead and put that clip up so you can take a look at it here.
Emergency vehicle approaching.
So as you can see, it actually alerted me to the presence of an emergency vehicle, and I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I don't know if that would necessarily lead to a save in terms of tickets. I mean, if police was already chasing somebody and blasting it like that, they've already got a customer. They're not going after me. So it's funny. Right after this was shot, I got another alert telling me that there was a train approaching at like 60 miles an hour or something, which I thought, what the heck? There's no trains here on this road. There's not one on the median. There's not one off on the side of the road running parallel to the highway. There's no trains in this area. So it was a false alert, which I thought was kind of funny. And then right after that, my detector falsed to 35.5, which it actually does all the time. So I'll go ahead and show you that clip of this safety, or is it, I guess the strobe alert, whichever one it is of these two. My detector falsing to the presence of a train and then to Ka band. So I'll go ahead and play that now. Train. It says train is approaching at 60 miles an hour. There's no train. And there's no 35.5. So yeah, as you can see, it does detect these other things. There's a bunch of false alerts, especially on Ka band. For whatever reason, it loves falsing. It also falses to these other things, and yeah, it can detect the presence of emergency vehicles, which sounds great in theory. It's like one other way to know, hey, there's a cop nearby, slow down, that kind of stuff, right? Totally cool. Love it in theory. Sounds great. In practice, I mean, I don't think you necessarily like, oh, there's a cop at the other side of the red light. He's shooting me. He's trying to, he's obviously on his way to an emergency. He's flashing his lights, trying to get somewhere. He's not looking for me right now, right? So I think it's a very limited use in practice. And so, yes, I know they advertise there's these other things that we can detect, but one, it's not really that useful. Two, there's a bunch of useful things that it can't detect, like a lot of the spectras and stuff, and a lot of laser guns. And three, these aren't even bands at all. I feel like they're just completely misusing the term. It's just a marketing technique. It's the same thing as like, if you take a look at what they say, and they say like, oh, we've got ultra low noise signal amplifiers that were once affordable only to military systems. And we have low microwave loss circuitry utilizing gold-plated circuit boards and the use of flip-flop mixer multiplexer diodes and packages that were once unattainable. Like, it's a whole bunch of bullshit. If you've ever heard the expression, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit, this is basically what they're doing. They're giving you a whole bunch of like really technical jargon here that really doesn't mean anything. I mean, it sounds great. It sounds super sophisticated and fancy and futuristic and like military technology and super low noise. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. It must be incredible. It's BS. It's marketing stuff. It has very little to nothing to do with the actual performance of the product. And it's designed to wow people, I hate to say it, who don't necessarily know too much about it. And this is kind of where I started with this stuff, like thinking, wow, this must be really good, And I'm sure a lot of other people, you look at the different bands that it detects and you don't know what all that means. And are there other bands that are in use that it doesn't detect? Do you even think about that? Do you think, well, I'm going to get the one that detects 15 bands instead of 14 bands? Or It's marketing. It's total marketing. It has very little to nothing to do with what's actually useful in real life. So with that said, let's go back through this list and highlight what actually is useful. You've basically got X-band, K-band, and Ka-band. Those are the 3 bands of radar that are used here in the States. Pretty much every detector on the market can detect these, with a few minor weird examples like the Rocky Mountain radar, which is another kind of just dumb product, and they say we don't detect X-band to different thing. They also have like goofy marketing stuff that isn't true, but whatever. Ku band doesn't matter here in the States. VG2 detection in Spectra 1 and 4. If you're worried about that, get a detector that is actually immune to detection in the first place. That's the way to do this properly. So not a big deal. There's also other spectras that it can't detect that can detect it. So hey, good to know, right? The lasers, basically it's saying, in kind of a convoluted, weird-ass way, it's saying we can detect a whole bunch of different pulse rates from a variety of different guns and manufacturers. It's also saying, just based on this list, there are pulse rates that we cannot detect. You would think that if they could, they would add it to the list and now sell it as like an 18-band detector or whatever, right? Just that's a big part of their pitch. But based on this, it looks like they can't. Haven't verified it yet myself, can't say for sure. And then finally, these last 2, you have 2 not really useful things. You've got the safety alert system, which really isn't in use and never took off. And you got the strobe alert system, which apparently is in use, but is of very little practical value. So there you go. A lot of the stuff, to summarize, it's BS. It doesn't really matter. And there's nothing special at all about a 15-band detector or a 14-band detector. If you really want something that works well, don't buy a Cobra. Buy like an Escort product or a Valentine, or something like a little bit more serious of a product. I know Cobras are affordable and cheap, more ways than one, and it's more marketing than true engineering capability is what these things seem to be. So there you go. There's a look at this, what was it, the SPX 7800 BT that we're using here as an example, which supports, according to Cobra, 15 bands. And here you go. Here's what they mean. And here is an explanation of what really is going on, so you can take the time to just understand a little bit more. And let's slice through the marketing hype and BS and really get down to brass tacks and understand what's going on and what's not. So awesome. There we go. Hope that's been helpful. I will see you guys next time. Subscribe for more, and bye-bye.